What's going on, guys? Jeff in here. Israel Nelson's my commander, and Duke of York is going to be in this one. I want to point out a couple things. I put George Ard as an inspiration on there, and reason why is because I think this British line needs a little bit extra help with the penetration on those shells. And I also wanted to point out one more thing before we get going here. I jumped right into this one. This game, I'm basically doing a test to see with my current build what the AG damage output on Duke of York is. Now you read a lot and you do a lot of like looking into it, and you hear people talk about how the Duke of York is basically more AP focused. How it's supposed to have better AP than say KG5, but I mean, in my opinion, I really haven't noticed too terribly much of a difference, and I just think that in general this line and this kind of class with the King George and the Duke of York, you have to be actively switching back and forth. And this time I just wanted to see purely what I could do with HE loaded. So you basically in this entire game you're going to see nothing but HE, right? There may be an off chance like 1 or 2 salvos of AP. But again, this is strictly to see what HE can do in this ship. Now, my overall strategy for this class, I think I'm going to basically start putting out a video on what I think the best play and strategy is in the King George and Duke of York. And that being, I've been doing a lot of research and a lot of basically thinking on this. And my conclusion is going to be this. I think that the best chance that you have to do damage and help your team in this battleship is to go and make sure you get a fire set on the enemy battleship. Okay? Once that fire is set, you switch over to the AP. Prime example here would be this Nagato, right? Now, this Nagato sitting flat broadside, so a lot of people would say, well, why are you not just going to throw the AP at him right away? Well, as soon as I fired those guns, I would switch over to the AP. And in theory, I would get a fire. Now, that doesn't necessarily happen every time. But again, I would fire the AP at that Nagato. Then I would switch over to the HE. Because more than likely, depending on how these people play the game, etc., especially at Tier 6, Tier 7, I'd like to think that they're more experienced, but not always. But again, you see here, this Nagato's starting to angle up a little bit against me. Now, in theory, if that was AP, right, then... And by the way, I want to point out I just citadeled a cruiser with HE, the British HE. So again, do not sleep on this. And there's something else I want to talk about when you fight cruisers as well. But back to my original point, especially when you're fighting battleships. I think the AP struggles against battleships, so you need that residual damage that you're going to get from the HE fires. Okay? Now, this whole situation here, I'm pretty well angled. This Pensacola sails out. Obviously doesn't want to be alive anymore, so he's going to be going down here in a second. But in the meantime, again, I'm setting fires on these guys. And my general strategy, I'm going to work this in. You've seen in the past that I put out videos where I'm basically AP focused in the Duke of York, and I brought up how I need to be more shell conscious and switch to the HE when those situations arise, etc. But then the next video that I come out with on the Duke of York, I'm going to basically try to do this strategy that I'm telling you about. That is, I'm going to try to set fires and then follow those fires and HE salvos up with switching to AP. Because a lot of times you'll see battleship players basically think, oh, it's Duke of York. He fired one salvo of HE against me. He's going to stay with the HE in the barrels, right? And then you can do a lot of damage and catch people with basically with their pants down and not expecting AP when you do actually send that AP salvo out. Got the arsonist there, Nagato. So again, I think that in general, when you have that combo, that switch, that back and forth, that's where this ship will ultimately shine. The armor on it is horrendous. So again, kind of to go back and review over what I was talking about with this strategy. It's not necessarily a hardline set where you have to fire the HE first. Let's say this Colorado is giving us flat broadside and we have AP loaded. Okay, we can fire AP at him, and more than likely, if we get substantial damage, he's going to start angling up against us. So it's going to basically be advantageous to us at that point, regardless, to switch to the HE Then once he's angled up and after we've done the damage, that's very difficult for them to heal, which is AP damage. Then we get the fires going, and that's when we start to try to burn them down. So again, I think that being active back and forth with the shell types is what makes these ships extremely dangerous. But again, you're seeing I'm at 103,000 damage just firing the high explosive at this Colorado. Okay, and you see we're getting consistent damage, 2, 3, 4,000 damage apiece every single time that we pull the trigger on our main guns. So now you're going to witness basically at the same time what happens though when you get shot at by Colorado, and for that matter, North Carolina is in the same boat, Nagato's in the same boat. So you have a lot of battleships that when they actually do fire at you are going to do substantial damage, and that's mainly because you have a lot of green in your armor belt, a lot of 25 millimeter, which does not effectively protect you against AP from those enemy battleships if you are angling. And from any angle for that matter, you're going to get penned. So going bow in against this Colorado is basically worthless at this point. I'm not trying to ricochet, I'm just trying to minimize the profile. I understand that if he does decide to shoot at me, there's very little I can do to mitigate that damage. This isn't Monarch, this isn't Vanguard, where I can actually angle up and bounce those shells. This is, Duke is very, very, as we like to say, squishy, right? It takes a lot of penetrations, it takes a lot of attracted damage, and absorbs a lot of damage, okay? And now, you don't necessarily always get the Citadel damage if you're angled up like this, but again, you hear that substantial damage indicator where you're basically hearing the heartbeat in this game. So again, you see there's a 9,000 K salvo with HE. So again, prime example. I had the HE, I shot that, I get the fire, I switch to AP. Now I have a flat broadside target that's getting damage ticked away off of it with AP, as well as having my next salvos be followed up with AP shots and salvos. And again, if he puts that fire out, then we send an AP salvo. We switch back to the HE after his cooldown has basically gone through, and then we relight that fire. So we want to be having residual passive damage and fire damage constantly happening, and we also want to be dealing damage with the AP. That's my strategy moving forward with this Duke of York, and I think that it's going to be a strategy that's really going to help this ship shine and succeed at tier 6, and especially if you're having to fight up tiered. And I think, in my opinion as well, for this to actually be an effective build, you need to have a little bit of range. Now, I'm not saying that you have to have everything spec'd on a Cunningham build for range, but if you have the Megatron that gives you that little bit extra on your battleship range main gun, then absolutely you can get away with using Madden, who I really like as a commander. I just don't like the fact that these guns have such a short range with him. So again, if that ever comes back as an option to pursue, then I'll probably pursue that as an option, because I really do like my Madden build as a tank build, and especially with these HE firing builds, or I should say attrition builds. And the reason why I like that is because he has a 20% reduction in fire when you have that combined slot 1 and slot 3. So, but again, this game, if you don't have that in conjunction with Madden, that being the Megatron U.S. Commander, then I would strongly suggest Azure Lane Nelson. And if you don't have Azure Lane Nelson, I would suggest Andrew Cunningham in that order for this ship. And the reasons being, basically, you are going to be trading back and forth with HEAP, and you need to have something that's going to resist enemy HE while you're firing HE. If that, I hope everybody's kind of with me, and I'm doing justice in explaining that. But for you to basically burn people down, you have to not get burned down yourself. So for that to be the case, you have to have a build that's somewhat fire resistant, okay? And that's where my general strategy comes in on this. And again, you're seeing nothing but HE set fired out of these guns and out of the turrets here. And you're seeing a lot of damage being dealt. And it's not like we're just hiding in the back, burning people down. We're pushing up. We're getting captures. we're up in the thick of it. We are fighting, pretty much in a front line to medium position here. We're not hiding in the back, at our max range firing HE. So again, to highlight, I think moving forward, and I'm going to be doing some experimenting with it and seeing how I like it with regard to my strategy moving forward with this Duke of York. I think that the combination of HEAP and knowing how to get a fire, get the residual damage ticker going with the fire, and then follow that up with AP, I think that can really do some damage and really make this ship a viable tier 6. Because right now, at the moment, only having the 4 heals really weakens this ship. And I don't like the fact that this has 4 heals when most of the battleships have 5. I understand that they made the trade-off with one of the heals for the sonar, but again, this ship has 25 millimeters all over the place. It's not very well armored, so I would strongly like to see Wargaming pursue adding a 5th heal to this. But again, AP, HE combination, stay tuned. I'm going to be doing some tests. We'll see how it worked out. But in the meantime, as you can see, HE alone, 139,000 damage. So if you guys like the video, leave a like, and we'll see you guys out on the high seas.